Everyone. So I am going to discuss um, the grading for uh, discussion boards. So what I'm going to do here is click on discussion boards. This is week one discussion, and here are the rubrics. So I'm going to open it for you. And it shows you here all the different criteria. So your grade on critical thinking, which is the analysis of the thoughts that you're talking about. So, the discussion board asks a prompt on the topics that it wants you to discuss. And then it's the critical thinking aspect is what did you take? How did you analyze those topics? Did you just verbatim or regurgitate the definitions, or did you process them and discuss what it means to nursing, what it means to healthcare, what it means to your patient? Content, that's really self-explanatory. That's discussing, did you completely cover all required aspects of the prompt, and was it really relevant? Are you talking about stuff that doesn't really pertain to 2017? So part of that's also looking at how old your resources are. Logic and argument. If you're making claims, are they clear and concise, and are you using logic and reasoning to support it? So are you using research and evidence, and does it come from a good site? Are you using WebMD, or are you using an actual scholarly article? Style, which is obviously APA format and grammar. And then contribution to learning is how you actually perform in your discussion. So first things first, when you look at each discussion board, here are the questions. What are some of the reasons why patients are non-compliant with prescribed meds? Provide at least 3 reasons and select one medication. Discuss causes and consequences of non-compliance and possible solutions. Locate at least one scholarly website or video that discusses the medication. Also, your initial response should contain at least one scholarly source other than the textbook. And then you also want to respond to your to at least one of your classmates. So if you click on mine, I talk about medication compliance. As you can see here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 different resources, and I also discuss article on medication. And so one thing I talk about, so then if you look at the prompt, think about content, right? So we look here, did I answer all the questions? And the question was to talk about the 3 reasons for medication compliance, choosing a drug, why choosing a medication, and talking about that. So if you look, sorry, I just want you to see. So 3 reasons for noncompliance, select one medication, the causes and consequences of noncompliance and possible solutions, and then an article. So first of all, I have all 3, I discussed 3 reasons for medication noncompliance. So medication adherence is integral in optimizing health, especially in chronic disease management, and is an important aspect for nurses to assess. Otherwise known as medication compliance, adherence refers to patients' ability and commitment in following medication regimens prescribed to them. Healthcare practitioners, providers, and nurses alike must assess medication compliance with each patient and search out root cause and barriers in medication adherence. So I am analyzing why it's important, right? Because non-adherence is a pervasive issue in healthcare and is responsible for $300 billion healthcare dollars as a result of avoidable complications. So again, proving why it's important, right? So I had a logical and well thought out argument. Medication compliance influenced by numerous factors. However, prior to discussing these issues, it's important to understand 3 aspects of medication adherence. And it goes on to talk about compliance, known as initiation, implementation, and discontinuation. So initiation is actually starting medication. Implementation is taking the medication, and then discontinuation is stopping. So those 3 processes are going to help us understand what plays into compliance. So initiation focuses on someone taking that first dose. So we're going to talk about cost, access, transportation, and here's some information to support the argument that we make for that, and by the research. And I should have gone a little further here. So how many people have problem paying for their medicine? How many people have problems getting transportation? And what can we do to fix that, right? We can get them coupons, we can help write the pharmaceutical company, we can improve access to getting to the pharmacy. So I would take off points on my critical thinking because I didn't do a ton of insight or analysis on that. Next, we are going to talk about side effects and drug reactions. So that's going to affect the implementation, right? So side effects or fear of side effects or is going to decrease compliance. And I talk about that here. I use support from the literature. And then what nurses can do. So clarification on alerting for these things. And then again, discussing how this can happen with a certain medication known as SSRIs, which are used for antidepressants. People are very scared of their side effects and the stigma. And so, providing education, and then here's some examples here's some research to support the education that we can also improve. And then as you could see here, making sure hitting that last piece of discontinuation, and that also gets talked about here at the end of why you have to be careful about stopping it. And then talking about how dose response is important and referring to the website or to the prompt asked for an article on it. One thing I could have added here was more on why we stop, why people discontinue, and the outcomes of that and more information. So I would take off points on that. For contribution to learning environments, so you want to make sure that you're continuing the conversation, that you are encouraging a discussion. So putting things like, I really like your post and good job is not enough. I need to understand that you thoroughly read somebody's post and then that you're answering back like you're having a conversation in class. Since we don't get to see each other, this is my only time to assess your understanding and how you interact with your class. Hopefully that was helpful.